How you doing, Alan?
Final quarter. It's been, dude, I don't know. Well, I mean, you saw my message.
Yeah, man.
Um, yeah, just trying to really, dude, like we have freaking peds. I'm like studying for peds. We have two exams. So, because I mean, I think I told you like we end like May 19th. So from like May 19th and then boards in June, it's like,
It's just grind time.
it's grind time, but like it's like okay, I need to study for boards. I need to study for boards, and they're just like not. It's just not. They're not really optimizing our time. It's like I get the intentions are good. The execution is terrible. Like I mean, honestly, like I shouldn't even be complaining. Like it is what it is. I'm just this is the hand I'm dealt with. But I think in retrospect, the past 2 years in the classroom have just been like I don't know.
Whirlwind, man.
Well, you saw my message earlier. I mean, I just feel really, I wouldn't say demotivated. It's more like demoralized. So I just feel like
Mhm.
I've been getting like bitch slapped by the classroom, like every single, like
Yeah,
I cannot win, which is why like, tell me it gets better with like third year, fourth year.
I would say so, man. Second year is tough, honestly, because at the end of the day, you want 99% of your time to be focused on board prep. Your school's not going to allow you to do that no matter which school you go to. Certain schools are better about it than others, certain ones are worse about it. I remember it got to the point for me, I was going to zero classes, I was attending zero events. I mean, I was just locked up, like just grinding for boards and taking no prisoners, essentially, like pedal to the metal as hard as I could go. And they would try and make stuff mandatory, but none of us were sticking around for it because we're like, man, we just got to grind. So it's going to be like that at any school, man. It's super frustrating. And I know you don't have a ton of time between May and June to optimize, but at the end of the day, you got to work with what you got. And I remember we talked about this the other day that you can't let it get you down. Like there's going to be 100, 200 people, however many in your class that are all going through the same thing. Everybody's frustrated with it. Just worrying about it though and letting it get you down is exactly the opposite of what we want to do because your time is more valuable than that. You don't have the time to be focusing on what you can't control. And one of my favorite lessons I learned from the book, The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday, is focus only on what you control that is within your own power and then disregard everything else. Because if you can't control it, then there's no point in even putting 1% of your brain power towards it. It's just going to frustrate you. And that's how stress and anxiety actually grows within your mind, is by feeling out of control. Like every time that I've ever felt overwhelmed during residency is essentially I've just not been in the control of what's going on. And I'm sure that you're feeling a little bit of that yourself right now too, is you just don't feel that you have control of your schedule. So it's very overwhelming.
It's not even about the schedule anymore. It's just, okay, fine, this is the schedule I'm dealt with, but it's just, I guess, like after, dude, I wanted to fuck neuro. Like, I was like, okay, neuro second year is going to be my bitch. Like, I made that my mission.
Yeah.
And that like didn't happen. So I'm just like, I don't know. Like after that, I just felt so demoralized and just the like, all right, maybe like I'm just not meant for the classroom. Like no matter
Nah,
what.
man.
So that's just been very frustrating.
Well, the good thing is you're just about done with the actual classroom itself. And I know, especially from talking with SEMO, that you do well in like a interpersonal setting. So I think third and fourth year, you're gonna really put your wings on and fly for it, man. Because at the end of the day, if you can learn in the environment for third and fourth year and in your rotations, that means that you're going to do well in residency because it's the exact same type of setting. Like you're learning on the fly, you're looking stuff up about your patient before you take care of them, maybe even sometimes 5 minutes prior, and you're going from there. I mean, even as a resident, like if I have somebody come in with a certain pathology, let's say they have an iliac artery aneurysm, I'm like literally looking that up like right before I go in to see the patient just to refresh like constantly, constantly, constantly. And that's what you have to do as a student on rotations as well, is let's see that you're treating somebody with heart failure. You got to go through the NYHA classifications. You got to go through the meds, like give yourself 15 minutes prior to like look that up before you even step foot in the room. And obviously if you're in like a busy clinic or something like that, you have to be very, very efficient and quick about it and do some of that outside of the clinic time because you won't be able to slow everybody up by looking stuff up. But if you can take that mentality of like, oh, today I learned about somebody that had, let's just say they had coronary artery disease. What kind of things do I need to know about that? And then you go home and you look that up that night. So the next time you see that, you lock it in. And the big benefit for me on rotations was that I had context for everything I learned. And so if you can make connections between what you previously know and then what you're learning now, then you're going to learn it and retain it for a lot longer. And I always think of learning on rotations as like building a web, right? Because you have one little data point here that you memorized for boards. And then you see a patient that's got a symptom. So that's another part of the web. The patient's already on these home medications. So this is another part of the web. Patient had this surgery. So that's another part of the web. So you start building this web of information as you go throughout rotations. And that's really how you learn, man. And I think that you're going to do really well with that. Shoot, bro. Rotations they're awesome compared to being in the classroom all day, because in the classroom, you either learn that style or you don't, and it's very, very difficult. A lot of the time, administration makes it seem like, oh, everybody should learn the same way. Like if you have to sit there and watch lectures or whatever, but not everybody learns that way. I was grateful that my classes were not mandatory, because I sure as heck don't learn well by sitting in a mandatory classroom. I get too distracted. That's just my style. As my 7th or 8th grade English teacher told me, I'm too gregarious. I'd just be messing around too much with the person beside me rather than like actually focusing in on the lecture. I think honestly, back in high school, man, there's probably not a single class that I didn't get my seat moved, because I was always talking to people. So, but that's just all that to say, man, you're going to do fine when you get out actually into the real world, rather than having to sit in a classroom all day and deal with the time constraints of learning.
Yeah, and I've just got to build up my test taking skills. That's the key thing.
Absolutely, man. Did you get a chance to look through what I had talked to you about the other day?
I did. I actually just sent you a message last night.
Okay,
I looked at it and I'm like,
I had seen it, but I hadn't gotten a chance to respond to it yet.
Yeah, no rush. But essentially, okay, so back to my real questions. Okay, so I know you're a firm believer of what gets measured gets managed.
Right.
Sleep is very important. What's the point of getting a sleep tracker? And I guess what's an affordable, if so, what's an affordable way? Because I know I saw like an Aura ring, and then I looked at the price, it was like $600, $300 or something. I'm like, bro.
Yeah, it's super expensive. You don't have to get an Aura ring or Whoop Band or an 8 Sleep Pod or anything like that. They're all good sleep trackers, but you can even just track it on your phone. There's apps that you can actually put on your phone, and it's got like a gyrometer or whatever it is, or an accelerometer. And so it lays flat on your bed, and based upon the movement of how much you move at night, it can tell whether you're in a deep sleep or not. You'll have to just search the app store for it. I can't honestly remember what it's called. I used it like way back in college and med school. That's one option. The other thing is really the benefit of it is actually just to see how many hours you're sleeping. Obviously, the data is a little bit less detailed than if you had one of those devices, because it's not going to tell you like, okay, you spent X amount of minutes into deep sleep, you spent X amount of minutes tossing and turning, that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, even knowing that data, if you don't actually take action on the data, then it doesn't help you at all. It just causes frustration. And that's kind of a interesting way to look at it, because if, let's say that, and I'm not saying this is you, but let's say before bed every night you have a big snack, maybe that trashes your REM sleep. Sure, you might not be able to see that without having one of those trackers, but you're going to know that, okay, I've been sleeping 7 hours every night and I feel like trash. Let me try changing one variable. And so you can kind of change it like that. But absolutely, man, in terms of tracking your actual hours of sleep, you got to do that, because when you're when you're grinding hard, you cannot consolidate long-term memories without having adequate sleep. It's literally about as important as studying itself. And I actually just found the app. It's called Sleep Cycle. It's got an orange clock on it. That's the one that I used to use. But that's really my spiel on it, is what gets measured gets managed. If you're not tracking it, then how do you know that you're getting an adequate amount? How do you know that you're putting your time where it should be? Like if you're going to sleep at midnight every day and waking up at 6 a.m, that may feel like it's beneficial, but if you're not tracking it, there's no way to know.
All right. Yeah, that's fair. I didn't want to spend like $300 on an Aura ring, which, I mean, it sounds cool, but like, I was like, okay, like, let's be practical here. So,
sure.
Yeah.
I'd start with the Sleep Cycle app and go from there.
Nice. And then I was hoping to see a bunch of other people here, like third years, because I wanted to ask them like, hey, how important is it? Because when do you apply for audition rotations?
Every school is going to put your actual vSLO token in at a different time, but usually it's earlier off in the year, like February, March, April timeframe.
Okay, so the reason I asked that is because I've heard stories of, because I think I asked about this to you, and I've heard stories of people saying like, no, you got rejected because you don't have a step 1 score. I have a program that I really want to call and just say like, hey, how soon do I have to have step 1 before I apply to audition rotations? And then, so there's that. So my question
is, email, man. Just send them an email and ask. There's nothing
Yeah.
that it's not going to hurt you by just reaching out to the program coordinator. And a lot of people get really scared to reach out about stuff like that, like as if it's going to like hurt you in some way or it's going to ding your file. Like that's not a thing at all. Program
Okay.
coordinators usually, like for lack of a better word of saying it, it's essentially like a secretary for the program. They're not a doctor. They're literally somebody that their whole job is to keep like the unit essentially organized. And so like if you just reach out about logistical stuff like that, they're more than happy to help you.
Yeah. So because based on their answer, if you could take an extra month off, so we actually start rotations in July
Okay.
compared to August. If I had an extra option to delay a month and do my rotation in August and take step one prior to that, I'm assuming, is that a better option than starting in July? But I'd have a lot of dedicated time because I think I told you like what our third years ended rotations like mid-March or something like that, not April.
Yeah.
Do you need a lot of time to study for step two? I heard step two, level two. I heard not so much.
So it's going to depend on how much you actually keep on top of stuff during rotations. Obviously, if you're doing well in your shelf exams, you're going to be in a decent position step two wise. That's a very nuanced question. There's really no way to answer it just off rip like that. I will say that obviously your performance on step two is going to matter more than your performance on step one at this juncture, just with it being pass fail. But it certainly is harder to get to a passing level of step one than it is to pass step two. Once you pass step two, there's huge gradations of performance. I mean, somebody that gets a 265 is obviously a ginormous difference of performance than somebody that got a 235, but actually pass, it's a lot easier to pass step two than it is step one, because you have the whole year essentially of like learning on the job with rotations to go home every night, study a couple hours, go through the algorithms that I'll share with you at that point in time, and then keep working. So it's a lot easier to actually just pass if that's what you're looking for. In terms of whether you should delay to July, August versus early next year to have extra time for step two studying, it's a tough question. And honestly, the only way you'd be able to know is based upon how well you're doing on your practice test during this dedicated, because you may not need that or you may need it. There's no way to know until we lock in a practice test and see exactly where you're at. When do you have to let your school know by?
I don't know. I'm waiting on a friend to hear back from a third year, whether it's beneficial to take step one before third year or just after, like you can just take it after third year. Because
it's better to get it out of the way just because you're going to have so many other things to worry about in third year. If you're not at the point where you feel comfortable with it, then obviously I don't want you to go into something that you have the option to not take at that point in time. But 100%, like stuff like biochem, histo, some of the intro path, that's going to be really difficult to remember a whole year later outside of classes. But then on the other hand, knowing like your actual core systems like cardiac, respiratory, renal, GI, neuro, those kind of things, you're going to be much more well suited to get those questions correct. But the problem with step one is oftentimes it'll go into like the small nuances that you may not actually even discuss it whenever you're discussing a patient. Like, oh, the physiology behind the concentric hypertrophy of the heart, you know what I mean? Like you're not going to discuss that when you're talking about a patient. So like, sure, you understand the organ systems better, but that's also at the cost of that drawback.
Okay. Because I've been noticing like a lot more histo, like hey, what are the morphologic changes you'd expect to see? Like compared to pre-illness, like what are like the values here? It's like a lot. Is it decreased, increased? Like I keep getting those questions.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess last question, taking COMLEX before step one, does that also apply with step two, level two?
Yeah, I recommend COMLEX before step. Treat your COMLEX as basically like a practice run of what the testing center is going to be. It's ideal if you can get your COMLEX and your step in the same exact testing center, because then you kind of get like an extra, I call it at bat, meaning that you basically get a practice swing before you go to your actual step exam. You got to give yourself a few days in between. Otherwise, you're going to be overwhelmed and tired just going into your step. Like if you take it the next day or 2 days later, I'd give yourself at least 3 days in between. That way you have a little bit of time to relax, a little bit of time to actually hit some of the topics that you were uncomfortable with on the COMLEX. But I definitely recommend taking the COMLEX before your step, regardless.
All right. Well,
I've never had anybody regret doing that, essentially.
Really?
Yeah. And I've had people the other way around be like, oh, I wish I would have taken COMLEX first. Like, just because your score doesn't matter for it, right? Like you just have to pass it. Like no program is going to turn you down for a COMLEX score if you have a good step score, but the inverse is not true.
Okay.
And if you think about it logistically wise, the majority of program directors are going to be MDs. It's a statistic, right? Like across the nation. And so if you're comparing the score that they've talked about and looked at their whole life versus one that they're not very comfortable with, I mean, it makes perfect sense that they would care more about the step score because they can just compare everybody universally across the board. Here's their step 2 score. Here's their step 2 score. Cool. It's not like you're comparing a 600 versus a 250. Like, how can you compare that? I can't even hardly compare that. And I look at your guys' data every day. You know what I mean? So it's tough. That's why the preference is to take step after your COMLEX.
All right. Well, I think those are the only questions I have. So,
Awesome, man.
anyone take the floor?
Absolutely. Good to see you, man.